Jacob Hicks, welcome to the Star Coach Show.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. Been looking forward to this.
We are going to be talking about fearless selling. So everybody's ears just perked up, I think, because selling tends to be one of those things that gives coaches a little bit of a rash sometimes, and they don't know what to do with it, and they get wrapped around the axle. And that's why I'm delighted to have you here. And for those of you who are just joining us for the first time or are every week devoted listeners, I'm delighted to have all of you with us. The Star Coach Show does drop a new episode every Wednesday morning, so be sure to subscribe wherever you listen so you never miss a moment of the delightful guests like Jacob that we have, the tips that we do on YouTube, all the different things that we offer. Delighted to help coaches with strategies, tools, and resources for your success. So, what made me want to have Jacob Hicks on our show? Well, let me tell you. When I heard about Jacob, who is a coach, he's a keynote speaker, he has over a decade of experience transforming people's lives and businesses because of this concept of sales. Like we cannot be a success or by being a secret. We've got to get out into the world, and Jacob has a knack for identifying what really drives lasting success. And this is what we're going to be talking about today. So everybody's ears to how do we deliver strategies that help our clients achieve their success, but help us as coaches? What kind of systems do we have in place to help us, not just one and done kind of thing? Because Jacob's going to tell us how often people have to feel our touch, not in a creepy way, but in a great way, to begin to want to engage with us. So, what he helps people do is put systems in place so that we begin to feel the kind of success that we want in our businesses. And how do we let go of the angst, the ugh, that we feel around the concept of sales? How do we shift that? And Jacob, let's start with, like, when you hear fearless selling, what's the first thing, since that's your concept that you're sharing, when I throw that back at you, fearless selling, what's the first thing that pops up for you?
Honestly, it's a couple of things. So, if I can tell like a brief story, if that's okay.
Yeah,
Um,
love stories.
so back in college, I started early on in sales. I was in my early 20s doing sales in a retail setting. And it was a true sales environment. I was selling suits, and we were commission-driven people that we got, I mean, very, very little base pay. So if we weren't selling, we weren't paying our bills, right? And I was in college, I was in school. And I remember coming home from class one day, and I don't know what I was doing. I was just chilling in my room, probably avoiding homework, procrastinating like everybody's really good at in their early 20s, right? Um, and I don't, this revelation just kind of hit me that I didn't want the reason that I didn't get to where I wanted to be in life to be that I had been afraid. To put that another way, I don't want fear to control me. And the truth is, like, as I've gotten older and I've reflected on that a bunch, like the honest truth is that kind of on a little tidbit, I guess, that revelation has really defined a lot of what I've done in my career and in my life personally. So I mean, it really kind of comes down to like, do you want like fear to control you? Do you want like that kind of like that anxiety to be the reason that you didn't reach out to that person? And do you want that anxiety to be the reason that you chose not to help somebody? Because the truth is that if we are selling from like a place of honest and genuine care, and from service, then we are helping people. So I mean, it really kind of comes down to fear. So do you want fear to control you at the end of the day, or do you want to kind of drive past that and get more comfortable being uncomfortable?
Love that. Oh, love that. So I'm a believer that we have love driven emotions and we have
Mm.
fear driven emotions. Those are
Yes.
sort of the opposites, polar opposites of one
Yeah.
another. And so I hear you say, are we putting fear in the driver's seat? Now,
Hmm.
well, let's talk about some of the things that we tend to be afraid of, but when we look at them, it's like, really? So I think one of the biggest fears is rejection. Would you
Yeah.
agree?
Yeah, I mean, well, I would say it's rejection for sure. Like people don't want it to be like, oh, I reached out to somebody that I thought we hit it off, and like they're like, no, I don't want whatever it is that you're offering me, right? But you also don't want to feel like, well, I reached out to that person, I thought we hit it off at wherever we met, and I just haven't heard anything from them. I called them, I called them last week. I'm going to call them again today. I probably shouldn't call them anymore because I'm going to be bugging them, right? And that's all kind of in our head. Like we just have
Mhm.
told ourselves that story and we are choosing, it is a choice, we are choosing to believe it. So, I mean, if I can throw a couple of stats at you here for rejection.
Oh, please do. Yeah.
So when it comes to like sales in general, these are going to be kind of broad strokes. Obviously, we can dive into more specifics when it comes to different industries and that kind of thing. And it can vary quite a bit. But here's kind of some general rough rules of thumb. So if we believe that if we reach out to somebody one time and we are going to convert them, meaning that we are going to generate business from that interaction, that happens 2% of the time, meaning that the other 98% of the time, we are losing business. We are just not generating that business. Some other stats for you is that the vast majority of business, over 80% of business, is generated in five or more touches or interactions. Now, a lot of the time, people can think that, oh gosh, I mean, that can sound intimidating to a lot of folks that maybe aren't familiar with it. And I think, like, well, I reached out to somebody once, I called them, they didn't hear anything. I called them again. Jacob, this guy I heard on this podcast said I need to reach out 7 times, so I just gonna keep calling them. And that's all well and good, but again, you want to come from that like that love, those love feelings, right? You want to come from a place of
Right.
service. So when you're reaching out, you want to do it from that place of like that service, like we were just talking about, where an easy way to kind of generate a reason or a content or an email or whatever is to answer questions. Like you know your business better than anybody else in the world, right? Nobody knows your business the way that you do. So what are the questions that you get most often from clients or potential clients or prospects that like they're just not sure about in your industry or in your service? So just answer some of those questions consistently. And then the other piece of this too is that we live in our own worlds, right? Like I guess I just said, you know your business better than anybody else. So you live in that business, right? Like you interact with it every day. So instead of like thinking I have to generate a new thing every single time I reach out to somebody, then just say like, okay, I answered X, Y, and Z question, a month ago or a few weeks ago or whenever I last emailed them. So how can I reframe some of those similar things? Because we're at the end of the day, when we're coming from a place of service, we are teaching, we are educating people.
Love that. So let's make this a little more granular for a
Yeah,
second, and then we're going to talk about your systems as well. But I want everybody who's listening, if they're like, I don't get it, let's make this like a real like. So let's say you have a discovery call with a client,
yeah.
and they've shared with you what their pain points are. They've shared with you what they want to achieve from coaching. And they told you that they have interviews with a couple more coaches, so they're not ready to make the decision yet. So, Jacob, let's take this scenario and let's sort of put it into the five touch points that make sense, that aren't you just calling the client and say, have you decided yet? Have you decided yet?
Yep.
Have you
Yep.
decided
Yep.
yet?
Yep.
That's not the touch points that Jacob's talking about. So, so Jacob, take it from here. We've done that. Now, how could I, as a service provider, good hearted, wanting to kind of respond to my client and also be responsible in my business, walk us through the five possible touch points.
So, if I reach out to somebody, I like to set expectations on the front end as much as I possibly can. So, if for whatever reason, through objection handling or kind of whatever your sales discovery process is, like it ends up not closing on that call, right? So you guys get off the call, you think it goes really good, you assume there's gonna be some more interaction at some point. I say, okay, Meg, well, it's really great chatting with you today. He said, if you wouldn't be offended, this is the language that I use. So if it wouldn't offend you, I'm gonna reach out to you next week. How does that sound? Most of the time, I would say like I don't know if I've ever had anybody like no, that's gonna offend me. Don't ever call me again, right? That's if that happens to you, you probably don't want to work with that person anyway, right? But I ask if they'd be offended. And then I tell them, okay, I'm going to reach out to you, next Monday at 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to shoot you a text, or I'm going to give you a call, or I'm going to kick you an email just to check in to see how you're doing. Now, again, you want to come from a place of value as much as you can. And early on in these kind of interactions, you don't want it to be generic. Now, Now, long-term drip campaigns where you're like you message somebody, like you just don't hear anything, it's ghost, ghost, ghost. Like the long term where you like somebody might reach out to you in a year, those can be a little more on the generic side because you haven't interacted with them in a long time. But for these warm leads, these warm prospects, you want to be as custom as you possibly can. And again, you want to come from a place of value. So for me, I reached out to them, hey, I'm just, I'm doing as I promised. I said I was going to follow up with you via email. So here's this email. Now I was thinking about, X, Y, and Z problem that you said that you were kind of struggling with. So I did some research, and I found, these two or three articles that I thought could be of value to you. If I don't hear back from you, then I'm going to reach out to you again the next Monday. And I do something similar. And I say, hey, I'm just following up with you again. Still that problem that you had was still kind of on my mind. So I found some new articles, and I actually just wrote a blog post about this because you inspired me based on what you're struggling with. I thought some other folks could benefit from answering your kind of questions too. I threw this on my website. Um, and that's really good too because that gets you again hopefully interacting with you more directly again.
Right.
And then I might do a couple of calls just to keep them as warm as possible. And then if we're talking about like kind of if our plan is to end things at 5 touches, then I'll do like kind of a wrap up email probably where I'll say hey, the timing is kind of critical with all of these things, and I totally get it. So I mean, no hard feelings at all. If you're okay with it, unless you respond to this, I'm gonna make sure I keep in touch, and that's kind of your segue into keeping them on your drip campaign for the long term because
Mm-hmm.
they have to perform some sort of action in order to get off of your list. Say, hey, no, it wouldn't offend you. I'm going to keep in touch with you unless you respond to this email. And then, like over the long term, if you're sending like a weekly or a monthly or a bi-monthly or whatever, like your kind of newsletter kind of format looks like,
Mm-hmm.
then I if there's if so this kind of gets into a little more granular yet. So if I consider like these like if I say this person is like my A1, like this is the exact kind of person that I want. I absolutely want this kind of person forever and ever. If I had a million of this kind of client, that's what I would love. Now, not everybody's going to be that kind of what we call like an A+
Right.
prospect. And there's like different ways to kind of figure those things out. But if they are that kind of person, then what I like to do is monthly, I will usually pick, and again, it depends on your list and your clientele, but pick, say, like 5 to start of those people that you absolutely love and would love to work with. Keep them on your drip campaign where they get like your weekly or whatever newsletter. And then I will be very specific and send them a custom email on a different day than my newsletter and saying, hey, John, last we were talking, 6, 7 months ago, you were still thinking about this thing. And like I've been thinking about that a lot lately because I've had some other folks, ask me about this question. I found some more articles for you. I wrote this other blog post about it. I found this YouTube video. I found this, TED Talk or whatever, some other value-driven resource that you can send them that's free that they don't have to do a lot for.
Good, good, good. Excellent. Now, at any point post that discovery call, this person might say, "Yes, you're the person that I want to work with." Now, the other thing that I want all of you to be aware of is if we flip it to the other side, it might be that your newsletters, your contacts that you're sending out, the valuable resources that you're sending out in your to your to your contacts might be what got you the discovery call to begin with. So sometimes when you're doing that discovery call, that might be your fifth touch. That might
Yeah.
be the thing that might be when they're ready to land the plane. So I'm
Hmm.
not saying that every discovery call is the person's going to go away. Many times you're going to land that in the discovery call. But I flipped it on Jacob to say, let's say, that for some reason you had a discovery call with somebody and you still needed to kind of do those touches because it's not unusual
No.
for people to want to interview more than one coach at the
Mm.
time of, and you might be I always like it when I'm more at the tail end of their discovery calls than at the beginning of their discovery calls, but we don't get to choose that.
No.
Um, so one of the things that, and you just did a beautiful job sort of setting that up, is that we need to have systems in place. It can't be
Yes.
just sort of willy-nilly. So,
Hmm.
what do you want coaches to understand about the process of that we can maybe better handle rejection if we have a a process that we know that we're going to follow?
So, I mean, that's kind of the biggest struggle that a lot of like sales, like not salespeople, but just entrepreneurs in general have a hard time with is, hey, I met John at some networking event, we hit it off. Then like, what is the next thing that happens? And not having that game plan beforehand is like really, really it's hard. It makes life a lot harder. And like you said, it's kind of willy nilly. It's kind of flying by the seat of your pants. So and these are kind of like just again general frameworks, but what I usually have folks start is kind of similar to what we were just talking through, is what I call a 10 by 10, meaning that you met somebody at whatever networking event, you hit it off, you exchange contact information. The very next step is over the course of 10 weeks, assuming you don't have like a discovery call or like they land the plane and they end up, converting. 10 times over the course of 10 weeks, you're going to reach out to them in some form or fashion. And again, those are the touches that we were kind of talking about. And again, you want it to be very personalized as much as you possibly can, saying, hey, based on our discussion, you were struggling with X, Y, and Z. Well, these are kind of the three top questions I always get around that, or here's kind of the three things I always make sure people are thinking about, or here's things that, people can struggle with, and if they're in that kind of situation. And it's not 10 calls necessarily. It definitely can be.
Right.
But in today's day and age, I really highly recommend doing casting a wide net in a sense where like let's say you get email, phone number, and you find them on LinkedIn. I would use all of those as much as I possibly could. I would call them a couple of times. I might text them a couple of times. I might email them. I might message them on LinkedIn because you never really know. I mean, people are busy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that we offer might be really, really, really important and it might do a ton for them, but they are caught up in the whirlwind, right? In their day-to-day lives of whatever is that's going on. So reaching out to them in different varieties, you never know which one is going to kind of resonate with them. And then from there, what I recommend, I'm a big fan of Gary Keller. He's big in the real estate world. And he has a plan that I have a lot of folks customize to their business called a 36 touch, meaning that over the course of 12 months, these are for like long-term drip campaign prospects. But over the course of 12 months, you are going to reach out to them or touch them 36 individual times. Now, again, that can sound like a lot. That can sound really intimidating. Now, assuming that somebody either has done business with you in the past or like they just kind of ghosted you, that's kind of where these kind of folks are going to live. Then over the course of 12 months, you're going to call them 4 times. Most of this is going to be email. So setting up some sort of like newsletter, for lack of a better word. If you can capture like their anniversary dates or like birthdays, that's really, really great. I'm a huge believer in the handwritten card of some form. I mean, it doesn't have to be anything extravagant, but having a handwritten card can go a really, really long way, especially in like today's kind of electronic age, because nobody really gets
Right.
like thank you cards like in that kind of way. Now, when it comes to managing all of this, I I think right away you have to have some kind of CRM, a customer relationship manager of some sort. Now, there's a million of them out there. Salesforce is a big one. HubSpot's a popular one. I would say Mailchimp is like a quasi kind of CRM, like sort of. But finding something where you have a contact, where does their contact information live? And then more importantly, how can you email large groups all at once?
Mm-hmm.
And if you have somebody respond to you or you have like a discovery call or whatever the case might be, where do you like your notes from those kind of interactions
Right.
live? Because they might do a
So
discovery
just real
call.
quick,
Yeah.
as you're kind of going through to zero into a little more coach specific, there might be like the coach's console or coach automator
Yep.
or paper bell. So just kind of giving you guys some, not that the ones that Jacob gave aren't great ones too, but I want
Mhm.
to like for some of you might have like, is this a CR? Yeah, those are client relationship systems as well. So I'm sorry, go
Yeah.
ahead.
No, you're okay. So because you just have to have some sort of system, and I mean, any one of those will work, but you just have to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that you are using it consistently. Meaning that let's say on Mondays when you send out all your emails or something like that, and you get a couple of responses, then you automatically pop over to your CRM. You punch in that John and Joe reached out to me and said they loved this email or whatever it was. So you just have to make sure that you are using it consistently. Otherwise,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's really wasted money
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
Exactly. Any kind of system we can and for those of it, like just purchasing something doesn't mean that you've done it. You've got to
Yes.
actually use it. And which is why also I would encourage you, just a little footnote here, to be sure that you're purchasing or looking at something that's manageable at the phase that you are in your business right now.
Mm-hmm.
I tell a story when I was first a brand new coach. I looked at, and at the time it was Infusionsoft. It's not Infusionsoft anymore. They've changed their name, but it was like all the big people used Infusionsoft, so I should use Infusionsoft too. Well, Infusionsoft was way above my head of where I was at the moment, and it was super expensive, but I thought it was sort of like that, like if you build it, they will come kind of thing. But
Yes.
I didn't use it. I was intimidated by it. And so really, I just give everybody permission or
Mm,
or advice to like slow down. Where are you in your business right now? And what's the CRM that makes the most sense
yes.
for where you are right now? And just kind of think about that. Your thoughts,
Yeah,
Jacob?
I absolutely love that, and because like for like one example I gave before, like Salesforce, that is a huge system that can go from like solopreneurs all the way up to hundreds, if not thousands, of individual sales reps with all of the managerial stuff that goes along
There's a
with it.
huge Fortune 50 company that I work with that
Yes,
uses Salesforce.
yes, yeah. So I mean, like those can work, but that can be a ton. So figure out the thing that you'll like I said, and Mailchimp. I mentioned that before. I think that it's very inexpensive. I think it's a good place to kind of start, and I call it a kind of a quasi CRM because what I call like a when I say a CRM, what I really mean is something where all of your contacts can live. You can message people hopefully directly from that. Any responses will automatically be kind of incorporated into the notes, and then you can say, John's really excited about blah blah blah. We're going to try to set up a call for next week to do some discovery or whatever the case might be. Those are all really great. You also want to make sure there's some automations involved in that. So again, you're not doing everything manually all the time because
Right.
the one off, like maybe you do all your emails on Monday, the one off, like your kid's sick, something crazy happens. You don't want your business to stop just because you're not right there in front of your computer. Now the thing that I think differentiates what I would call like Mailchimp and like some other CRMs that we mentioned is some of your what we call in the sales word like your pipeline, meaning that these are the prospects we're actively cultivating. These are like our A+ folks. Here's all of our invoices and like the revenue that we've generated this month or this quarter, and we can compare it to last year, and then we can also see some things like, okay, is this messaging really resonating? Are we getting some good responses to those kind of things? Or we can do some like some A/B testing where maybe maybe we're sending out kind of like our drip campaign, and we are sending out more or less the same link to like some article that we think is really valuable, but we are changing our messages here and there, so we can do some different things in what I call like a more true CRM with like some task management versus Mailchimp.
Mm-hmm.
But is that if you're early on in your business and every nickel counts, I think Mailchimp is a really good place to start. But I always encourage people in the entrepreneurial space to get away from an Excel spreadsheet with a big list of names. You don't want to do that for very long because it's really not sustainable.
Right. And Jacob, just in case somebody's like, what's a drip campaign? Can you
Yes.
describe a drip campaign?
Yeah, so again, there's a very large variety of these. But a quick example is going to be a newsletter. Like you go to some website about, there's a million of them out there, like the recipe ones. Like I feel like I'm always looking for recipes. Everyone seems to have a newsletter about their favorite egg roll or whatever it is that they're making. Like that's where like there's a pop-up, like sometimes generally, you pop in your email and you're automatically going to be signed up for however often they're sending out their newsletters. Now, again, like the hard part when it comes to like some coaching, like some like service-based businesses, in my opinion, is the wording of the newsletter. Like I'm not a huge fan of that because if I'm looking for a financial coach or whatever it is, and I go to the website, I'm probably looking for specific information. Like I want to figure out more about them, and then maybe I had some question about some financial stuff, right? Then I get a random pop-up that says, "Hey, sign up for my newsletter." Now, I believe that what you have to say is valuable, but why should I sign up for your newsletter if I just wanted this one piece of information on some blog post that you wrote forever ago, right? So
Right.
I'm a bigger fan in terms of like opt-in and capturing it into the drip campaign is doing what I call a mini course, like a short series of emails saying like, "Hey, get my top 5 financial tips," or my like 3 things to avoid if you're struggling with whatever it is, and like that'll kind of warm them up, and then it can hopefully automatically transfer them into your long-term newsletter drip campaign.
Love that. So when Jacob says drip, it means that you're dripping
Yep.
out content. The content is coming out systematically and automatically. It's not that you're stopping and I mean, except for those A plus clients that you're sending
Yeah.
out your individual emails to, it means that you can create some kind of an automated
Yep.
nurture campaign, or you move from even that course that it's going to drip out the content to them every 2 or 3 days or
Yep.
whatever that is.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Something that automatically. So again, we want to try to get away from the manual. Like if you're not in front of your computer, then the business stops. We want to try to
Right.
get away from it.
So good. Okay. So for everybody who's like, okay, this is supposed to help me kind of better handle rejection. How would you say that these systems and
Mm.
having these systems in place can sort of help us feel better about engaging with people and inviting them into the sales and understanding that not everybody is a fit for us?
Yeah. So, I mean, when it comes to like rejection, it really what it comes down to in my mind is going to be your mindset piece. Because, like I said before, the stats, I mean, there's been a lot of studies that show that 80% of business is one in five or more follow ups. I said that earlier on in the show. Now, assuming that you believe that, which I'm telling you that it is true, you can look it up if you like. Then that means the vast majority of the time that people are ghosting us or saying, "Hey, no, I don't want whatever it is that you're offering." What they're really saying is not yet. Now, every once in a while, you might get somebody that's having a real bad day and saying like, "Hey, like this is not, no, I don't want you. I don't like you. Like, how dare you even reach out to me?" Now, in my mind, to me, coming from a place of abundance, place of love, like you were saying before, that's good. It doesn't feel great. I don't like people telling me they don't like me, but it really, at the end of the day, it's good because that is them opting out right away. I don't need that person in my email list. I don't need them in my drip campaigns. I don't need them looking at any of my content because clearly that does not make sense for them. So you need to try to reframe that in your mind a little bit. If somebody ghosts you after you had a great conversation about whatever, what they're really telling you is not yet. They've got a lot going on. Maybe they're on vacation. Maybe they've got, maybe all their employees quit or something crazy happens. I mean, it's hard to tell what's really going on in somebody's world because we live in ours, right?
Right.
Now,
So
now
good.
that yeah, so the nice thing with like these like long term, like the 10 by 10, the 36 touch, or any variation thereof, the long term drip campaigns and the newsletters, is the people that are interested and want to opt in again or want to opt in more are going to respond, meaning that if you are again providing value on a consistent basis, weekly, monthly, or whatever in between, then the people that like really love your content are going to, I mean, I get these emails now where people are like, I love that article, I love what you just wrote about that thing, like
Hmm.
this thing really resonated with me. So I mean that kind of really can help us get past some of the rejection too. um and the thing too that a lot of people can struggle with is like they think that in order to be a sales professional, you have to be the super outgoing, charismatic person, and you have to have like all these crazy skills and crazy closing techniques and crazy objection handling, all this stuff, right? Now, those things can be great, don't get me wrong, but you don't have to. I'm a really firm believer that all sales can be taught. It was taught to me. I did not wake up one day a good salesperson. It was all taught to me, and I made a lot of mistakes along the way. So something that can also help reframe some, like if you're struggling with this a little bit, like outreach or talking to people or networking, that kind of stuff, is to set the lower bar. So what I really believe is like, what do you find manageable and sustainable that will still get you a little bit out of your comfort zone and still growing without feeling like you have to make 100 contacts tomorrow? One of my favorite ones is, let's say you want to do some more networking events and you're like struggling with this rejection thing a little bit, is let's
Hmm.
say, okay, I'm going to go to one networking event this next like 3 or 4 whatever weeks, and the win is going to the networking event. Is making zero contacts and meeting zero people. It's going to the networking event. You say, okay, I did that once, I did that twice, I did that 3 times. It's manageable for me. So what's the next step? Well, next time I'm going to make one contact. I'm not trying to get their information. I'm just going to try to meet one person in again a sustainable way, and that'll allow you to grow and get past some of this like rejection anxiety. Because again, it really all just lives in our head.
Well, and I also think that what we tell ourselves we have to be doing at those events gets in our head. So if
Yes.
you were to look at, I'm going to this event to meet other interesting people, to
Hmm.
learn about them, to be curious. one of the key skills that we have as
Yes.
coaches to just ask some questions and explore and connect. Isn't that different than I'm going to this networking event because I need clients and
Yes.
I mean, it's just such a different, it's like, so I'm going and I'm gonna meet people and I'm gonna walk away knowing a couple people's names
Yeah.
and
Well, and
like,
I was gonna say
but
I
it's not
love
about
that.
sales.
It's not about sales because again, if we go in with that mindset, that's coming from a place of scarcity, meaning that I need to have this. I'm feeling desperate. I have to get this
Yes.
done, and we can all feel those feelings at some point. But we have to try to again switch it to the place of abundance, saying like, how can I serve the people that are at this event? And another way to kind of look at this is the people you meet at those events may never be clients. They might not fit your niche or whatever, kind of clientele you serve, but they could be incredible allies. They could be the people that are adjacent to the people that you serve. And then that's kind of how you guys work together. Like you serve a piece of their clientele, they serve a piece of yours. So it's kind of a back and forth way to work.
So good. Just shift. Like if the
Mhm.
frame you've put around something is keeping you paralyzed, what other frame could you put around it that would release that paralyzation and allow you to engage and be yourself?
Yes, 100%. One another kind of piece to this too, when we're talking about systems and sales and like the mindset piece, is it's so easy to get caught up in the whirlwind, which is why I'm a huge advocate of spending at least an hour a week, if you can, at least an hour a week if you can, working on your business and not in your business. Saying, okay, what worked this week? How did that networking event go? How did that post go? How did these emails go? Like, and asking yourself what worked. And okay, that didn't work quite as well as I'd hoped, so I'm going to tweak it for next time.
So, so good. When you shift selling into relationship building and actually pulling your coaching skills into getting to know people, my hope is that that drains some of the angst about this
Yes.
whole thing because that's what I mean again and again, how do I sell in my business? I I connect. It's
Hmm.
connecting. It's and that those touches that Jacob's talking about, I really hope that you are thinking, how can I provide ongoing value to the people who have trusted me enough to give me their email, their
Hmm.
telephone number, how can I continue to bring value to them and without, it's not like you have to give away but give an article, give a podcast, give a, my weekly newsletter highlights people like Jacob. It says Jacob's on the show and here's what he's talking about. And if that's helpful to you, tune in and
Yeah.
consistently every single week if you're on my email list you're going to
Hmm.
get a heads up about who's on this week's show, who is on last week's show, and who's going to be on next week's show, because that is a value add.
Yeah. Well, I think the a point that's really worth highlighting that you just mentioned that we haven't talked about too much is the consistency piece of this. Like if you like love all the strategies we've talked about and like, hey, I'm gonna implement a bunch of this stuff, that's fantastic. But unless you're willing to do it for, and I'm not talking about the next 2 weeks, the next 2 months, I'm talking about months and years. Because
Hmm.
I mean, if you talk to any salesperson that's been in sales for any number of years, whether it's, coaching or like true sales, like sales reps,
Right.
they will all have examples and stories they can tell you where like, hey, I talked to this guy one time, like a year and a half ago. He never talked to me or emailed me or anything like that, but he's been on my list or whatever it is. And then all of a sudden he just called me and said, hey, thanks so much for your information. It really resonated with me. I'm ready to sit down and talk. We've all got stories like that. So the consistency piece is absolutely huge here.
It is huge. And the other piece that's huge that it's really hard to hold on to when you're in a place of I need to build and I want that scarcity is that you're planting seeds and
Yes.
that consistency that you're not the center of anybody's universe. So I get that you're like I need clients now and what else might you do to kind of fill that because that scarcity and that panic isn't going to attract anybody. That's the first piece. But the other
Yes.
piece is that when you realize, like, I don't know how many times, hundreds of times I've heard coaches say to me, I thought they were ready and then other things they just kind of went away. Well, to Jacob's point, we don't know what's happening in their life. We don't know what priorities have it. And then they'll suddenly come again. I have hundreds of stories like that, like, where I
Yes.
thought, and like somebody says, "Oh my gosh, I've been getting your newsletter and I love what you're doing and now I'm ready to move forward." But it's because I've been nurturing them with with valuable content. So shift, like, you are never as important. You're not the center of their world.
Hmm.
I know you want to sign that client today. I know you want it, but they might not be ready today.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, like if you have somebody on your email list, like you're saying, like we're consistently nurturing them. Like somebody falls off, they unsubscribe from what we're offering to them. That's probably good. That probably means that that person was not a good fit, at least right
Right.
now, and maybe ever. So I mean,
Right.
we want to the way when I was first kind of becoming a coach, I had a mentor and a coach himself, and he told me that we want to attract our ideal clients and we want to repel our anti clients. So figuring
Yes.
out who both of those people are can be really, really huge over the long term in our business.
So good. So good. Okay. So, we've talked about having systems in place. We've talked about the fact that what statistics show us is that is no matter how vibrant and wonderful you are, it's probably not a they just meet you and they sign up for a year program with you. That's probably not the case. You need to build relationships. You need to build your know like trust factor with the people who are engaged with you. Jacob, what else do we need to be aware of as we're beginning to wrap up our conversation around fearless selling?
I mean, I think the more I've gotten into business, then also entrepreneurship, the more and more I believe. So I think Henry Ford said it best: whether you believe you can or you can't, it's true. So I
Hmm.
mean, your mindset is really, really huge coming into all of this. So I mean, understanding like no often means not yet or not right now. Just because they haven't responded to you in 6 months doesn't mean they may not respond to you tomorrow. So being consistent with all of those things is really, really huge. Um, I'm also a really big believer in iteration, where you have to try new things and you have to try even if things are working, try something a little bit different. Like I'm a really like the 80-20 rule, like do like 80% the way you've done, the way that's working, and then try like take 20% of that effort and like try something a little bit different. John Deloney, who isn't a coach, but he was with Dave Ramsey. A favorite quote of mine from him is nothing changes if nothing changes. So if you're not getting the results that you want, then it's probably time to try something else.
So, so good. Jacob Hicks, thank you so much for bringing your expertise forward on these actionable strategies. I'm hoping that every single person has something that you're thinking, I could play with that. I could look up CRMs and see which CRM works for me. By the way, that's a bonus if you're in the Star Coach community. We've researched the top 10 CRMs for coaches. You might be thinking about how many times you have been at a networking event thinking about selling instead of relationships. I mean, there's any
Mhm.
number of things that hopefully you're walking away from this interview. Jacob, how can people stay in touch with you? What's the best way to do that?
So the easiest way to stay in touch with me is through my website, jacobhickscoach.com. I mean, otherwise, I'm all over social media. I mean, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, kind of all of them, I guess. And then I also have, if people kind of like what I've said a little bit today, I also have what I call my entrepreneur sales toolkit, where we dive a little bit deeper into, like I said, rejection and like the CRMs and like the like actually truly building out like your customized like 10 by 10 or 36 touch. So that's available on my website as well.
So good. So we're going to have all the links to connect with Jacob in the show notes for this show, as well as if you're watching us on YouTube, they're right below this video. As we are wrapping up, I just want to reiterate that we have great experts like Jacob on the show every single week to help you, whether you're a coach or a leader or basically a human being. We have ideas for you to really flourish and thrive. And so we hope that you subscribe to the show and follow us. And I just want to thank Jacob once again for joining the Star Coach Show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
So good. Remember, everybody, we're all here on this earth together for a reason. So let's look for what we have in common instead of what makes us different. Let's look for the unique values that each person brings. Let's do the heavy lifting together. Until next week, this is Meg Rentschler wishing you the very best for your success. Have a great one.